Okay, so I want you to picture this. You are in just absolute agony. I'm talking about back pain, specifically sciatica. You know, that lightning bolt feeling that just shoots from your back all the way down your leg.
Oh, it's debilitating. Most people in that spot, they're looking for, a strong painkiller, maybe even surgery.
Exactly.
Okay.
But imagine you go to a specialist, and instead of a prescription, they hand you a grocery list.
Okay.
And the first thing on that list isn't even a plant. It's a tail.
A tail.
The tail of a sheep.
Yeah.
And they tell you to go home, boil it, and drink the grease.
Right. That sounds like something out of a medieval spell book or something. An old wives' tale.
It sounds completely wild. But here's the thing. In the material we're unpacking today, this isn't folklore. It's actually part of this highly structured, logical, and surprisingly philosophical system of health.
Yeah.
We're doing a deep dive into classical health science, or Ilmu Kesehatan Classic, and it's all based on a lecture by a practitioner named Sins Abu Muhammad.
And just for context, the source material is a recording of a lecture and then a really intense Q&A session. It covers the principles of what a lot of people call Tibbun Nabali, or prophetic medicine. But our mission for this deep dive is to look past just the herbal recipes. We really want to get at the worldview, because this speaker, Sins Abu Muhammad, he's not just, tossing out random cures. He is laying out a system where theology and biology are completely inseparable.
That's exactly what drew me in. He doesn't start with the herbs. He starts with philosophy. He basically says the best doctor isn't the person in the white coat.
Right.
It's your own body, and ultimately the creator of that body.
It's a huge shift in mindset. I mean, if you're used to the Western model of, I have a problem, the doctor fixes it, this is going to feel very, very different.
Right.
The speaker's absolute first rule, the pillar of everything, is Tawhidullah.
Which is, that translates to monotheism, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
But he applies it clinically. The core idea is that the healer, the sins, the tabib, whatever you call them, has absolutely zero power to cure.
Zero. That's a pretty humble place to start. Usually experts want to tell you how powerful they are.
Not here. He's very clear. Healing is exclusively the prerogative of God. The therapist is just a friend or a companion in the process. They're just there to walk the path with you.
I actually really like that framing.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the pressure it takes off. If you're a healer, you don't have to play God.
Right.
And if you're the patient, you're not putting all your hope onto this one person.
Exactly. And the source argues this isn't just, a spiritual idea. He says it's physiological. By taking that burden away, the patient's mindset centers on acceptance, on prayer, and they enter this state of psychological readiness.
Our heart calms down.
Kalbu, the heart calms down. And in his system, a calm heart is basically a prerequisite for the medicine to even work.
He also drops a quote that I think is so incredibly optimistic, especially if you're dealing with a chronic illness. He cites a tradition saying, Allah did not send down a disease without sending down a cure.
And this is a massive distinction. In our modern world, we hear the word incurable all the time.
All the time.
We just accept that some things can't be fixed. But in this worldview, incurable is basically a lie.
So if a doctor says there's nothing we can do, this speaker would argue, that the doctor's just wrong.
He'd say the doctor is simply ignorant of the cure. He uses these two words, alim, one who knows, and jahil, one who is ignorant. So if a cure isn't found, it's just a lack of knowledge, jahil, on the part of the practitioner. It's not because a remedy doesn't exist.
So it's not a dead end. It's just a missing map.
It's a missing map. That's a great way to put it. It turns a terminal diagnosis into a treasure hunt.
You just have to find the right key. And speaking of keys, let's talk about how this system actually works on the body. He brings up the law of opposites.
Yes, and this is ancient logic. The premise is so simple. Everything has an opposite, up and down, male and female, day and night.
Right.
Therefore, disease must be treated with its opposite.
He used some really basic examples, like if you're hungry, what's the cure? Food. Thirsty. Drink. Tired. You rest.
It seems obvious, but he just extends that to pathology. If you have a hot disease, say a high fever or inflammation, you need a cold remedy to neutralize it. A dry condition needs moisture. You're always trying to bring the body back to the center.
Back to equilibrium. But here's where he gets really specific about what counts as a remedy. He seems to have a real problem with synthetic chemicals.
He does. He argues that the best medicine is what the body's already familiar with. This is what he calls the friend versus stranger concept.
A stranger walking into your living room uninvited.
Exactly. When you put a synthetic chemical in your body sees it as an invader. It goes on high alert. It has to use up its, quote, vital energy just to figure out what this new substance is.
But with herbs, spices, foods.
The body welcomes them. It knows them. There's no resistance. He even references Hippocrates, the father of medicine, saying the body itself is the doctor. When it's balanced, not too hot, cold, dry, or wet, it creates its own immunity. The external medicine is just there to nudge it back to balance.
And he paints this beautiful picture of where that medicine comes from. He talks about rain on the mountains, flowing into rivers, watering the soil.
And growing the turmeric in your backyard.
The kitchen pharmacy.
Yes. He's telling you, the listener, the factory isn't some high-tech lab. The factory is the earth. The cure is probably sitting in your kitchen cabinet. Ginger, pepper, chili.
Yeah. It's a cool thought that the solution to your illness might be right next to your salt shaker. But, and this is a big but, you can't just go start eating spoonfuls of nutmeg. You need a strategy. And this is where he brings in my favorite metaphor from the whole lecture, the healer as a general.
Oh, this was so vivid. He compares the body to a country that has been invaded by an enemy, the disease, and the healer is the penglima, the military commander.
But a general doesn't just run onto the battlefield screaming.
No. To win, a general needs intelligence. He needs a Jesus.
A spy.
A spy. The spy is the diagnostic process. You have to observe the symptoms, listen, check the pulse. The general has to know the enemy's location, their strength, the terrain.
Right, because if the enemy is hiding in the head and you send your troops to attack the foot,
you've just lost the war. You've wasted your resources. Or, even worse, if you send a massive bombing campaign when you only needed a small team, an overdose, you end up destroying the very country you're trying to save.
that's a great way to explain side effects. It's friendly fire on your own organs because the general didn't have good intel.
Precisely. It really underscores that just because something is natural doesn't mean it's harmless. Precision matters. The dose matters.
Speaking of the role of the healer, there was a section where he got surprisingly legalistic about an Indonesian regulation, PP 103.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Because usually there's this tension between traditional healing and modern medicine, but he seemed totally on board with the regulations.
He was, and I think it shows his integrity. The law he mentions distinguishes between a doctor and a healer. Legally, only doctors are treaters, pengobat. Traditional practitioners are health promoters, penyahat.
And he's okay with being just a promoter.
He completely agrees with it. He points out, the difference in education. He says, look, doctors study for 10 years. Then you have people in the herbal world who take a 3-day course and claim they're equal. He calls that out. He says it's dangerous arrogance.
So he's basically telling his peers to stay in their lane.
Yes, but he frames his lane as vital. He sees his role as preventative and rehabilitative. If he does his job right, promoting health, the patient won't need the doctor's emergency intervention.
I like that. It's collaborative, not competitive. Okay, let's get to the part everyone's waiting for. The troops, the actual remedies. We have to go back to that sheep tail.
Okay, yes.
This came up in the Q&A about sciatica, or Urkon Nasa.
Right, so applying the general and spy logic, the spy reports that sciatica is caused by phlegm or fluids that harden in the joints, and then they're struck by a cold wind.
So the enemy is cold and hard or dry.
Exactly. So law of opposites. You need something hot and lubricating.
That sheep tail.
Specifically, the tail of a Kiba's sheep. It's a fat-tailed sheep, and that fat is incredibly rich.
And the recipe was super specific.
It was. You divide the tail into 3 parts, boil 1 part each day, and you drink the broth, which is basically the rendered fat on an empty stomach for 3 days straight.
It sounds heavy.
It is, but the theory is that this specific animal fat acts like a solvent and a lubricant. It gets in there and melts that hardened phlegm in the joints and, relubricates the nerve channels.
It's greasing the gears from the inside out.
That's the logic, a mechanical fix using biological fluids.
Okay, moving from the lower back up to the face. This next one blew my mind. A listener asked about vision problems, blurry vision, detached retinas. And the speaker didn't start with the eyeball. He started with the heart.
The heart-eye connection. And to be clear, he doesn't mean the physical heart pumping blood. He means the kalbu, the emotional center.
And he says there's a direct structural link.
He claims there are 24 layers or networks connecting the heart to the eye. And his argument is, well, it's terrifyingly simple. If those networks disconnect, blindness happens.
He used a religious example for this, didn't he?
He did. He talked about the prophet Jacob in the Bible. He went blind not from an injury, but from weeping and grief over his son Yusuf. The sadness in his kalbu physically destroyed his sight.
That is so heavy. So for the person asking about blurry vision, the implication is check your emotions.
That's the first step. He's saying you can't treat the eye in isolation. If you're carrying around immense grief or stress, you are literally severing the power cord to your eye.
Did he give a physical remedy, though? Or was it just cheer up?
No, he did offer physical support. He suggested turmeric, noni fruit, and chewing on Habbatus sato black seed before you sleep. But you can tell the context is that these are secondary. The real cure is stabilizing the heart.
It just reinforces that idea of the general needing the full picture. If you only treat the eye, you're missing the source of the invasion.
Exactly.
Let's talk about something a bit more tangible. Lumps. A listener asked about a lump in the breast.
Yeah, and this is where his knowledge of Indonesian botany really came through. For the internal remedy, he prescribed a specific brew: turmeric, black turmeric timu, henam fingerroot, timu kunci, and aromatic ginger, or concur.
That sounds like a really intense, spicy tea.
Oh, it would be very warming. These are all rhizomes, roots. And in this tradition, roots are known for their anti-inflammatory, circulation-boosting properties. They're meant to break up stagnation.
And there was an external remedy, too. Something to put on the lump.
Yes, a paste made from crushed yard-long beans kakang panjang mixed with coarse salt.
Yard-long beans and salt. That's literally dinner ingredients.
It is. You apply it to the area, but you avoid the sensitive areola. The salt probably acts as a drawing agent, pulling out fluid, while the beans are seen as cooling to reduce the inflammation. The kitchen pharmacy in action.
There was one more diagnosis that I found fascinating because it connected two parts of the body I would never, ever link. Numbness on the left side.
Ah, yes. The tile.
The spleen.
The spleen. So the listener complains of numbness, maybe in their left hand, and the speaker doesn't look at the hand, he looks at the spleen. In this system, the spleen is the distributor. It pushes fluids and blood out to the extremities.
So if the spleen is weak,
it fails to pump the resources to the edge of the map. So the numbness in the hand isn't a hand problem, it's a logistics problem back at headquarters.
the supply line ran dry.
Exactly. So the remedy was to stimulate the center, Java ginger temulawak bay leaves, and concur, wake up the spleen, and the feeling comes back to the hand.
You know, through this whole deep dive, the speaker's just so confident. But there were a couple of moments where the modern world kind of rubbed up against his traditional view,
Right.
specifically vaccines.
I really respected this moment. A listener asks for his stance on immunization. And instead of, guessing or getting political, he was just blunt. He said, I have never studied vaccines in the classical texts. If I don't know, I don't know.
If I don't know, I don't know.
It's the general admitting he has no intelligence on that particular enemy. So he won't deploy troops. It actually reinforces his credibility on the things he does know.
He also had a bit of friction over autism or ASD.
Mm-hmm.
A mother asked about her child.
Yeah, and this was a total clash of systems. The mother came with a label, autism.
Yeah.
And the speaker he rejected the label. He refused to diagnose based on a computer printout. He insisted on hearing complaints.
He wanted to know what the child actually does.
Right. Does the child sleep? Are they hyperactive? How is their digestion? He wants to treat the observable symptoms, not the abstract syndrome. He says, I treat what I see. It's a reminder that this system is hyper-individualized.
Right. He treats this child, not the general concept of autism. Before we wrap up, there was one very practical tip for a problem I think a lot of people have. Gas.
The universal problem.
A listener was complaining that excessive gas was breaking their wudu, their ritual ablution for prayer. So it's spiritual annoyance, too.
And the speaker identified it immediately. Small intestine issue. Fermentation happening in the gut. The remedy.
Fennel.
Fennel seeds, attas, or black turmeric. It's so simple. Fennel is known everywhere as a carminative. It stops gas. It's a great example of how this high-level theology boils down to really practical advice. Eat some fennel, settle your stomach, keep your prayer.
So let's bring all this home. We've talked about sheep tails, spicy teas, grief, blindness.
Yeah.
What's the big takeaway?
For me, it's about ownership. This system demands that you take charge of your own territory, your body. It's not passive where you just swallow a pill and wait. You have to consider your food, your emotions, your relationship with the creator, everything.
And realizing that the best doctor is already inside you. The herbs are just helping that internal doctor get back to work.
Exactly. It reframes illness. It's not bad luck. It's a signal that the balance is off. And usually, the tools to fix that balance are a lot closer than you think.
It definitely makes me look at my spice rack a little different.
Probably a lot of intelligence for your general in there.
I will leave you with one final thought, something to chew on from that hard eye section. The speaker suggested that our emotional state can physically construct our vision. If grief can physically blind us, what else is our emotion doing to us? How many of our chronic pains, our stomach issues, our migraines are really just physical echoes of an unresolved emotion?
It forces you to ask, are we treating the symptom because we're afraid to look at the heart?
That is a big question. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into classical health science. Stay curious, listen to your body, and maybe check your pantry.
See you next time.